Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I can see that there are at least a couple of people who've been on an earlier webinar with me, and so you're going to unfortunately hear a little bit of that construction background noise again. I thought it would be done by now, but apparently they still have more work to do. So I apologize for that. We are recording the session this afternoon again. Please type your questions in the chat window or the Q&A. There's a link where you can download the slides. I will actually copy and paste that again so that everybody can see that. I'm going to paste it in the chat window. Just a moment. Okay, there it is. So feel free to download those as we're getting started. If you would like a certificate of participation, it looks like the form where you registered did not have that question, so just type into the chat window that you would like one and we will take care of that for you. And if you are watching the recording later, you can just email us, and I'm going to provide my email address at the end, so you can feel free to do that. So as we're getting started, I wanted to start with one of the big activities, or one of the big activities. It's probably the best known activity within LiteracyPlanet, and it's called Word Mania. So when I started thinking about Word Mania, I thought, well, maybe we've got a couple of options here. So I was going to give everybody a choice about which kind of Word Mania you would prefer. Do you want the Word Mania? And if that's a picture of you on the left, either standing up or sitting at the table, then I'm sorry, I do apologize. But if you say that you'd like to play the one on the right, which of course we all would, that would be something we can actually do a little bit. So this is a screen capture. We're going to go in and play some of the games, and I'm going to show them to you live. But I thought I would get started this way and get our creative juices going this afternoon. If you were actually playing Word Mania, you would have 3 minutes to build as many words as you can from the letters displayed here. And you can use letters more than once. So what I want you to do is to see if you can make a word out of these letters, and then make another word by adding a letter or letters to that first word. So try adding them at the end, maybe, or try adding a prefix to that first word that you came up with. And you can go ahead and type your words into the chat window if you like to share them. It would be fun to see what everybody came up with. I came up with bump, and then bumps, and bumpy, and bumped with an ED at the end. Then I came up with read, reread, pre-read, reads, and ready. And camp, camps, decamps, cramps, decamped, cramped, decramped. A lot of wordplay that we can do with this. So what skills do you think that students are working on when they play this game? Obviously, it's fun, but we could probably think about some other skills that we really value, especially in academics. Spelling, certainly, phonetics, prefixes and suffixes, cognitive flexibility, where we have to change our mind from thinking about, for example, I don't have an H in this one, but if you have an array of letters that includes a C and an H, or an S and an H, then you have to think about the way that you pronounce the digraph as well as the way that the standard sound is pronounced. So you're being able to shift and convert your mind over to thinking about them in a different way. And of course, strategy. The letters have different value points, and so if we are good enough and fast enough to think about that while we're doing it, then we would have a lot of success with that. So this is a great example of the kind of gamification that is in LiteracyPlanet. And I wanted to spend just a few minutes talking about the value of gamification, because we're all familiar with it. We know that kids like to play games, but it's really a lot more than that. All of the programs that we offer include gamification, and LiteracyPlanet is really a star in this regard. So I want to talk about not just something to attract students, but what is good pedagogy. So first of all, the computer doesn't judge. It gives you straight feedback. It doesn't tell you one good thing and then one bad thing. You just get it straight like it is. You got it right or you didn't get it right. And it won't treat you differently on the playground afterward, no matter how well or poorly you did. In a gamified world, I say this to my MBA students when we use games or simulations in the class there, is that one of the great things about it is that nobody dies. It's not like going to battle for real where dangerous things could happen or trying something really challenging. That would be, dangerous, but we get another life. We get to try it again. You can bank in our simulations in business school. You can bankrupt a company. You can lose the race. You can create a bunch of nonsense, and you get to build on what you learned. Not only do you get straight feedback, you get immediate feedback. We talk about how games can trigger dopamine, that feel-good chemical, but dopamine is actually a learning chemical. And so when we get it right at the time of learning, we're going to create a stronger memory as well as stronger motivation. You get rewards and recognition. The computer doesn't lie. You really earn that bronze medal when you accomplish that challenging task, and it doesn't forget to reward you when you've earned it. The fact that you can do something many times, approaching it a little differently each time, try new things, really encourages a growth mindset. And you get to do it quickly and repeat it the correct way so that you learn the information or skill correctly and don't have to unlearn it later. Gamification, video game formats really do grab students' attention. That's an advantage. But it also helps, sometimes, it can actually build attention. Of course, there's a lot of controversy about video games and the impact on children's attention skills. And there's some clear evidence that some types of video games, particularly first-person shooter games, have an adverse effect on children's attention skills, very fast-moving and lots of distractions. However, there are others, and Brainware Safari is one of them. It's our cognitive training program. And LiteracyPlanet can encourage students to sustain attention and focus for longer periods of time. Games that present students with a pathway along which they reach milestones, again, reinforces the concept of growth mindset. You aren't expected to instantly learn something. You do it in stages. You can see where you are, how far you've come, and where you're going. Not always clear in even the best classrooms. And finally, games motivate intensity of effort. When we're alert and really trying, the brain chemicals that are involved stamp our learning with extra emphasis. So all of these skills need to be intrinsic, all of these processes intrinsic in the game's activities and not just an afterthought. We really want to get to the point where the game is actually helping you train on the skills that need to be developed. So let's see how all that manifests itself in LiteracyPlanet, which is a comprehensive online literacy program. LiteracyPlanet is unique in its scope, combining all key areas of literacy, which makes it far easier on the teacher than what many do today, piecing together disparate programs. You might have a spelling program or a sight word program and a grammar program and a writing program, and all of those you have to sort of combine in pieces and parts, and this is all integrated into one system. It approaches the concept of developing mastery in literacy skills in a way that's both engaging, of course, because we talked about gamification, but also personalized. And you'll see in a little bit how that works. So I can deliver true differentiation to students, and they can all be working in LiteracyPlanet, but working on different things and in different ways at different levels, and not really be aware of that. So we're used to hearing another aspect of the program. We're used to hearing that programs are aligned to state standards, but LiteracyPlanet is also unique in this regard. It was originally developed in Australia, and I wonder if everybody can guess what Australia's second largest export is, just sort of by the way. And the fact is that it's education. So there are a lot of really great education programs that are coming out of from down under, as we say. And so the program incorporates the standards of countries around the world, as well as the states in the US, and the best minds of literacy education all over the place. So it doesn't just tell us what standard an exercise is aligned to. We can actually go and search by standard to find an exercise that relates to it. So again, it makes the task for the teacher planning how to have his or her students go through and meet the standards much, much easier. So we're going to go ahead and hop into the program now. And remember, type any questions you have along the way into the chat window, and I will stop and check on them in a little bit. I need to get this. So what I want to do first is show you what it looks like for a student. And it'll give me an opportunity to show you a variety of different types of exercises. So there are several paths in the program for the student. But by default, I am taken to the tasks that my teacher has assigned for me to do. And the teacher has the option to lock me into it, so I have to do these first before I can go and explore the other things. But by default, I'm going to go to my tasks. And you can see I have several different things here. One is a word builder, which is a spelling task. There's a grammar task. Looks like that's another grammar task, and then something about reading. I also have some more recent things the teacher has assigned. This is actually reading a passage from a Lewis Carroll from Alice in Wonderland, and then another grammar type of exercise. So let's just take a look at a couple of these things. I'll start with word builder. And this, again, as I said, is a spelling exercise. So in addition to grade level spelling lists,
spell the word correctly to claim your treasure from the visionary. Listen to the word and then tap on the correct position for each letter card.
Machine, as in the sewing machine, is noisy.
Okay, so the sewing machine, and that wasn't a sewing machine in the background that you heard a little before, but the sewing machine. So what I like about this particular game, and there are like 8 or 10 different games that you can play with spelling words. Some are alphabetizing, some are putting pieces of the word together. This particular one requires you to visualize the word to figure out where the letters go. That's one of the reasons that I think it's great. So I'm pretty sure the A goes here. Now I get the C. And this is, I believe, is a 5th grade word, somewhere in that range, maybe 4th. So I'm going to get these in place, and I've spelled the word machine.
Lying, as in lying around all day, makes me sleepy.
Lying around all day would make me sleepy too. So you get the idea. I'm going to go back and I'm going to show you another kind of a game, an exercise in the program. Let's go ahead and look at prepositional phrases. So what this is going to do is to help me recognize a phrase that includes a preposition. And it has a little bit of an explanation. So presumably, in most cases, this is used as a supplemental resource. So the teacher would actually present something, but in this case, we can actually do this on our own, and this would be reinforcement then. So it gives some examples of some prepositional phrases, and then we can see the questions. So after I've read that, what I need to do now is to highlight the prepositional phrase in the sentence. So he rolled the ball across the room. So I have to highlight.
Across the room.
And then I'll see how I did. So I got that one right. Here's a choice. So it's a different format. It's not always just highlighting. If I click on little yellow flowers, which I know is not a prepositional phrase, it's going to tell me that I got it wrong. And I can show the answers, and it'll show me exactly what I did wrong. So if there had been multiple choices, I would see that there. All right, so let's go back. And let's try another. Let's go do, I'm going to actually go into my reading. I want to read about advice from a caterpillar. So the excerpts in that are comprise the reading tasks in LiteracyPlanet are not reading a long book. They're fairly short that allow the student to really practice and demonstrate that they are mastering the particular kinds of skills that we want them to learn. So this is an extract. It's an excerpt from Alice in Wonderland. It's the little story that we probably are all familiar with, where Alice encounters the caterpillar, and she has just shrunk herself down so that she is about the size of the toadstool that the caterpillar is on. And so you can see that this is just a few pages. It's and she's quite confused, and the caterpillar isn't really very helpful, and probably it's actually a bit insulting. And Alice just says, I know it would, your feelings might be different, but I would feel very queer if I was having that experience. Okay, so if I've read it now I get a bunch of questions. And I'm going to get, the first one is, here's a question about the main idea. And this passage is mainly an argument, a conversation, an interview, a script. So I don't think it's an argument. I'm going to say it's a conversation because it goes back and forth. And that's the right answer. So in addition to, and here's a question that now looks at conclusions and inferences. So there are a variety of different types of questions that you're going to encounter in any of these kinds of passages. Questions about the types of ideas and the main ideas we saw, conclusions and inferences, predicting, comparing and contrasting, vocabulary, so learning new words in context. There's a couple of words in this passage that might not be familiar to students, and so they're going to learn about them in context. Cause and effect, facts and details, and facts versus opinions, all those kinds of different levels of thinking that we want students to be able to accomplish when they are involved in understanding a text at deeper and deeper levels. So that gives you a little bit of idea of that. So unfortunately, all that wonderful progress I've made is not being saved. So those are my tasks that my teacher has set me, but I've got a couple of other modes that I can work in. One is called Quest. And Quest, again, is literacy activities, but simply designed in a way that I can explore on my own. I'm going to close that. I hope you can hear all that beautiful ocean sound in the background. That sounds pretty nice. So I can choose an activity, and it will have a series of exercises. Again, same kind of format, where I'm going to be able to, I have no idea what this is, so it's going to be...
Word Monster is hungry and wants Bowden to feed him. Drag each word to Word Monster in alphabetical order.
All right. So now I have a bunch of words, and I'm going to have to figure out alphabetical order. So let's do a couple.
Scrub.
Oh, that's good.
Scrum.
Now, if I give him the wrong one, oh, he makes a terrible sound there. That would be very entertaining. So you get the idea. So I can do that, follow quests. I reach goals, and I get to play some little mini games, and it's really a wonderful activity. And there's also the ability for students to focus on particular kinds of learning activities on their own. So you can see here that it says level 1, level 2, and level 3. Well, this doesn't mean first, second, and third grade. It's just different levels. And as I'll show you in a little while, the teacher has preset my grade levels. And so whatever the lowest grade level is level 1. Whatever the highest grade level is level 3. So if you have students working next to each other in school, they're all going to see the same options, different levels, but they might be very different levels of work for them. But they're not feeling punished or embarrassed or anything like that, because they're all working in LiteracyPlanet and working at an appropriate level. And it all looks like they're engaged in the same kinds of activities. So that, again, I'm going to get those activities. And if I choose one, I'm going to be able to then focus on what I want to focus on. So if I think I need more work in spelling or more work in grammar, I can actually choose to do those. And another just that I would like to share is the My Words. So students can, if their teachers have assigned or if they're looking for specific words that they need to learn in a given, the teacher can obviously set this up, but the student can as well. And so I brought in and created a list that I pulled off the web, actually, for a typical fourth grade, what fourth graders would be working on in first grade, in the first week of school, not first grade, fourth grade. And then I can pick, as I said, there are all these, in fact, there are more than I said, different activities that I can choose from. And I'm going to choose Jigsaw for now, so you can see how this one works. And what's going to happen here, as soon as the exercise loads, this is going to take those
Help
words.
Pegs get across to the treasure box. Listen to the word and then tap 2 wooden planks together to spell it. Tap the mark button when you are ready.
Accept.
Okay, so I have to find the word accept, or accept, I guess, obviously it is. So I'm going to grab the EX, and then I'm going to do the CEPT, and we're going to see if those go together.
Stolen.
Stolen. All right, we have the ST, and we have the OLEN.
Absolute.
Okay. So I'm not going to do that one. I just wanted to give the idea, but it's sort of dealing with wholes and parts of words and being able to put them together and see how the words are composed. That's one of the things I think is particularly nice about that particular type of game. I'm going to give up that progress again. Okay. All of this gives me rewards, and I get points, and I can change my avatar and play the arcade games when I earn enough credits and coins and things like that. So, and of course, I can go play Word Mania anytime I want, which allows you to play either against the computer or against anybody else in the world who is online playing at that particular time. But of course, it's very safe and protected, and you don't do any communication along with that. All right, so lots of activities, lots of flexibility for students, and a lot of real true engagement in the activities that they have, all based around various aspects of literacy. So now I'm going to go in and tell you what the teacher's side of things looks like. So this is the teacher dashboard. And one of the most common things that a teacher is going to do would be to assign activities. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I'm going to click on this quick assign, which is really, truly quick assign. And there are a couple different ways that I can search for activities. Remember I told you that LiteracyPlanet has everything that's aligned by standards, so I can actually search for an exercise by a standards alignment. And I'm going to go in here, and as you can see, I can choose all of the any state standards or the Common Core standards. Maybe I'll just do Common Core today. And let's say we're teaching 3rd grade. So here are all the 3rd grade standards. And I can go into any of these and I can find an activity related to a particular standard. So let's say we want informational text and key ideas and details. And we're going to choose this first one. So here I go. I've got all of these texts that are going to satisfy that need, that are at the appropriate level. I've got a ton of them, so I can find something that will be interesting to just about everybody. And again, this is the kind of reading activity that I showed you when I was logged in as the student, where you're going to read the text and then get a bunch of questions that make sure that you are understanding it and that help you think about things like key main ideas and predicting and all those kinds of things. Particularly here, key ideas and details. So we know that that's going to be covered in those and give students that practice. Now, the other way that I can assign activities is simply just search by subject or just to search for an exercise. And then I can restrict this. Say I want to say maybe we've got a few advanced students. I want to look for 4 and 5, and I want to do main idea. Let's see. I don't even know if that's what that will produce. Oh, okay. Again, a ton of stuff. So I can choose that. One of the nice things is when I find an activity and I want to check it out, let's say Nim's Island, it takes me right to where I could assign this, but I can also look at it before I assign it. So I can click play and it will bring me right into it so I can see exactly what the exercise looks like. And I'm going to go out because you know how that works. And then I can assign it. So I can check for individual students. I can assign it to all of my students, or I can assign it for groups. So I'm currently looking at the entire class, but I might only want to be looking at my differentiated group. So this might be a group that is getting some resource support or something like that. And then I can assign it to them. So really efficient and flexible in how you can do it. If I'd rather than looking at the exercise, I can actually just quickly read the text and see the questions. So we'll go back and we assigned it to our students. So that is terrific. One of the things I want to point out, though, is that, as I said before, to get students started in the program, you don't even have to do that. So I'm going to pretend that I've just started LiteracyPlanet. I've entered my students. They've been set up in the program. So here are all my students, and I don't necessarily want to start by picking activities. What I can do is simply choose their grade level. And then when they go in to their view, whether they're playing Quest or the Academy, or whether I have assigned tasks, they're all going to be at that right level for them. So let's say I have Cameron here, and I want to, he's just at grade 4 now, but I want to give him a little bit more. I want him to go from grades 3 to grade 5. Okay, I've updated that. He's grade 3 to grade 5. Oops, don't think I kept 4 in there. Let's make sure I do that. 3, 4, 5. Didn't make any sense to do 3 and 5. There we go. Okay, so he's got all of them. And so now when he goes in, instantaneously, he's got access to all of those thousands and thousands and thousands of activities at the right grade level in a way that he can really enjoy and engage with them. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop for just a second and check the chat window and see if we have some questions. Okay, Patty. Oh, great. Grape. Great. Wonderful words. Okay. I don't see any other questions at this point, but please do type them in there as they occur to you. What I want to do now is just spend a few minutes looking at, it's going to be easier to do it this way, a little bit of the kinds of reporting that can be done. And again, this is reporting at so many different levels. It really makes it wonderful from the point of view of the teacher. So I can take any, let's say I've assigned that NIMS Island reading task to all of my students. I can go in and look at the results for that particular task with a traffic light kind of a presentation that makes it very easy. So here, students that averaged above 80% are going to be in green. Students who averaged between 60 and 80% are in yellow, and those that did more poorly are going to be shown in red. And then, of course, there are the blanks for the students who haven't done anything. So this allows you really quickly to say, okay, so most of my students did really well in this one. I've got a few that I need to focus on, and I can determine right away if there's a deficit and really hone in on that. When I click on an individual student, that's what you really get to do. And you can see this is a group of assigned tasks, and I can see exactly how a student did on this group of activities. And so I can see that the memory game where the student only, this is Cameron, performed at 62% is something where we're going to need to focus additional attention. Now you can from there or from this matrix reporting. So this is a more, a big broad look rather than looking at a specific activity or group of activities. We can just look at all of our students across the main categories of the areas that are in the program, from phonics to sight words to spelling, reading, comprehension, grammar, and writing. And then for each student, how they're doing, how far along they are, and where their performance range is. So, and how they're, we can then drill down to a more detailed level. So if we drill down now to comprehension, we'll see the various comprehension activities that the student has been working in. And we can drill all the way down to the specific answers that they've given. So we're looking now at a report for comprehension activity completed by Clara. And Clara, we can see her actual answers. So she gave the correct answer. It's about javelins, true, false question. And we can go through each of those questions and see exactly what she got correct and what she got wrong. So we get really tangible evidence. You can see this one was a spelling exercise, and the spelling words were there, upon, no, off, again. So some basic sight words. And when they were asked for their THEY apostrophe RE, the response was THEIR. And so we can get very specific in terms of the kinds of mistakes that the student was making, and obviously do the appropriate intervention and go back and support them in the ways that they particularly need. Now I want to spend just a few minutes looking at what schools and students have experienced as they've used LiteracyPlanet. This is based on research that was completed by PricewaterhouseCoopers. And what they did was they took 10 years of LiteracyPlanet data, so enormous amounts, millions of bits of data and hundreds of thousands of exercises. And we're able to look at how the students improved their average score as they completed exercises in the program. And so, as you can see at the beginning, the bottom 25% of students, there was a pretty big gap between their average score and where the top 25 students were 25% were performing. But over time, and it's not that many exercises, by the time they've completed 30, 40, 50 exercises, those students are now really raising their game. They're really getting what they're working on, and the gap between them is closed significantly by the time here you've seen that they've done 70 or so exercises. But even just after 30, you're seeing that gap really collapse. So we often think about how do we help those lower performing students catch up and not just improve, but actually accelerate and help to close that gap. And this is a great example of how we can do that. The improvement does happen at all levels, so teachers are able to help students move ahead, starting with just 7 or 10 exercises a week, and that is about a half an hour of class time. So it doesn't take a huge commitment of time. It's something that can be combined in with other activities or as part of a block class or just once a week in a 20, 30-minute session as part of a class. Lots of different ways to do this, to give, or even just 10, 15 minutes a day for a few days a week, to give students this experience and help them master these important skills. They also found that, and this shouldn't be a big surprise to any of us, that when students tried and did exercises across different areas, so spelling and reading and grammar, so the more areas that they worked in, the more subject areas they worked in, the better they did. And those who did at least 5 did 15% better than the students who just did one subject area. So the more activities, the more varied activities, of course, the more you're going to get. Students really do enjoy this. It can be used at home as well as in a school setting. And so this is an example of a woman who had a couple of kids, a journalist as well, and really had her children really enjoying the program. It appealed to both of them, both the son and the daughter. And really, as she saw it, helping them consolidate and reinforce what they're learning in the classroom, but in a way that's really, truly enjoyable, that they're eager to do. I've heard a number of stories about kids who come home from school and they ask to play LiteracyPlanet, and that's great because it has such a wonderful effect. So as we wrap up, I'm going to see if you have questions in a minute, but as we do that, I was going to come back to our Word Mania board with a special challenge. All you need to do is type a 5-letter word from the letters on this board into the chat window, and we will set you up with a 3-month free trial of the program. So if you are interested, you can do that, and I'm going to go check the chat window for questions as well as for your 5-letter words. I bet you can all do that. Speak, excellent. And of course, when you get access to the LiteracyPlanet, you have access to the Word Mania game as part of it. And grape, wonderful. Okay, so Patty and Judy did a really great job with that. And now I want to see what kinds of questions you might have that I can help with. Ready is another one, yes. I find this addictive, and I have some colleagues who, there was a big Word Mania competition earlier, actually it ended not too long ago, and many of the students and families who are playing it really found it to be a lot of fun. I have a colleague who sat and played it with her son, and they were sharing strategies and trying to figure out how to get the highest scores, and just had such a good time with it. Okay, I'm not seeing any additional questions at this point. So if there are none, what I will do is just, again, share my contact information. So if you have questions going forward and would like to be in touch, I would certainly welcome that. And if you have, if you're watching this as a recorded webinar, then you can also feel free to contact us if you've watched it and would like a certificate of participation. We will provide that as well, so just email us to request that. All right, I'm going to check one more time for any questions that there may be. Looks like there might be one other. No questions. Okay, great. All right, well, thank you all so much for being with us today. We really appreciate your sharing some of your valuable time with us, and we hope you found it helpful and informative. And we hope to see you in another webinar sometime soon. So have a great rest of the day, and hopefully spring is springing where you are. It's finally coming to Chicago. So have a great day. Thanks. Bye-bye.